Hey, Pat.
Alrighty.
Just a very quick question. Tom, I can't seem to find him, and Anne has yet to make me host. I just posted a message on Facebook, so I can't stop the recording.
Okay,
It,
don't worry about that.
yeah. So very quickly, so again,
You want to
Pat,
practice the checklist with me?
yeah, sure. So yeah, so okay, Pat Conaway. How should I introduce you? Should I just say like this is Pat?
Yeah, it's Pat Conaway.
Yeah, or Professor Pat Conaway, or
No, let's not get into that because
okay.
really, if we're gonna have titles, it's adjunct part-time teacher.
Okay.
So just Pat Conaway, maybe at Yamagata University.
Okay. All right. Pat Conaway at Yamagata University. Okay. And the title of your presentation is Collaborative Book Creation with University Students.
Yes.
Okay.
So the bookmaking one, I edited that.
Okay. Yeah, I checked this yesterday, and that was your new title. So,
Yep.
Okay. And of course, you have Zoom already, and you're okay with recording.
Okay.
Yep. And you don't have a pre-recorded presentation, so that's okay. And of course, please remember. Oh no, that's number 8 is about the pre-record presentation, so that's fine. Are you going to use breakout rooms?
No, that would be ridiculous in a 20-minute presentation.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. And of course, be careful about any private data being revealed on screen, right? As a
I checked through my PowerPoints and I markered over all the names that are there.
Okay, great.
There are a few that fell through the cracks and I caught them this morning.
Okay, perfect. And how will you take questions?
In the chat.
Okay.
And I'll take them at the end.
Okay.
So I think because it's going to be easy to run into Tom's time.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than give the floor to people to ask their question, you just ask them from the list. It'll be smoother, I think.
Okay, so I'll do the copy and paste thing.
Yeah, and then so-and-so had a question. Because otherwise somebody gets on the soapbox and they use up other people's question time.
That's right. That's right. And again, there's a good chance that Tom might be like in the audience for your presentation. So hopefully that will make the transition more smoother. Sorry.
Yeah, I just don't want the Q&A time to kind of cut into his presentation time.
Right. How many questions do you think you would want to take? Like we're looking at 3 questions.
Maybe 3, and then I'll move to the lobby, and anyone that wants to talk more, we can talk in the lobby.
Okay. All right. So again, Anne has not, because I'm supposed to make you co-host and I'm not the host. I did put a message on Facebook asking her to make me host. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but in order to access this room, I didn't log in through any of the information. I just went to EventZilla. Oh, there she is. Great. Okay.
Well, I can share anyway.
Oh, you can share?
Without. Yep.
Hi. Oh, hi,
so
Anne.
maybe that's not good.
What's that?
So I was able to share without being host.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Oh, okay. I need to share.
Yeah, and if you can make me host, it'd be great.
Yep.
So that means, Andre, with these settings, there's an off chance that we have an abusive person in the audience that could share something.
Okay.
Be ready to shut it down.
Okay.
So to practice, can you turn off my camera right away?
Wait.
Well,
You got? Do I make the post now?
Yeah, just go into
participants.
Yeah, go into participants and then click on the show side or the advanced.
Oh, advanced.
Like if you put your cursor on my name, you should have some options.
Not seeing it.
No.
I was able to do it. Just I have to claim host, right? I have to be the host.
I am not the host, actually. I entered the room and I'm just a regular audience member at the moment.
So Anne, which computer are you in here on?
I'm in my the seminar room one.
Oh, I can actually. I'm gonna request host. ホストキーを入力してホスト役割を申し込み。
Wow.
That's weird. Okay, I'm not.
What's the host key?
I don't know.
Because see, when I hit claim host, I get this enter the host key.
Yeah, same here. So is it safe to assume that you're not the host? So who is the host?
There is no host.
Okay.
What is the 6 to 10 digit number to claim?
There could be something when you set up your room, there might be that information through the Zoom admin page. I'm not certain though.
Okay, time.
Okay.
Let's stop this discussion.
Okay.
Because as is right now, you can see this, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
So what we need to do is to be able to share with people. We can do that without being the host.
Okay.
So I don't think you guys are going to figure out how to solve this problem before presentations start.
Right. And we have 2 minutes before that starts. So, okay. Oh,
good morning, Glenn.
Good morning, Glenn. Good morning, Rosnani.
Hey, Pat.
Okay.
Good morning, Levitha. Morning. Hello again, Hudson.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Yeah.
Hey, good morning, Mia.
Morning.
Pat, just one quick thing. Because you're sharing the screen, I do not have access to, hold on. Okay, I got the chat. Okay, sorry, I got the chat open. Okay. All right. Okay, Pat. So we're going to get ready and begin, okay?
Okay.
All right. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Andre, and I'm hosting this session. And now as we prepare to begin, please be aware that this presentation will be recorded and possibly shared online. As such, if you do not wish your image to appear in the recording, please turn off your cameras now. You might also want to change the name that appears in your camera window. If you have any questions during the presentation, please enter them in the chat area, which will be monitored by me, okay, the room coordinator. And also everyone, if you could mute yourselves, okay, so that we can only hear Pat. Okay, Pat, so, okay, so we're going to get ready to begin. So of course we have Pat Conaway at Yamagata University, and he's going to be talking about collaborative book creation with university students. Okay, Pat, please begin.
Okay, I'll be right there. One of the other rooms that I have opened up, Greg needs me to make him the host. I'll be right back.
Hey, Andre, what are those chimes that we keep hearing?
That's when people enter the room.
Okay, I haven't experienced that before on other Zoom meetings, so I just thought it would be something simple to mute, but okay.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we for some reason we weren't able to make me host, but I think the chimes might actually be part of the room settings when the room was set up.
Okay.
Hopefully, though, once Pat starts, we won't get any new entries.
Not too many anyway.
Yeah. It will keep us alert.
You mean awake? Nah, that'll do fine.
Yes, I'm sure. Okay. Okay, Pat.
Okay, yes. So, good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming by. So I'd like to talk to you about one of the projects that I do with my students in my English class. It's not an extensive reading class. It's an English class that has an extensive reading component. So in our class, we make our own graded readers in groups. And the reason why is I wanted my students to get a little bit more engaged with their reading. At the beginning, I saw them trying to hit word counts and choosing books just because the books were long, reading them as quickly as they can just to get their assignment done. So I wanted them to start kind of thinking about the books, thinking how they make other people enjoy a story. And because they're freshmen, I thought by having this kind of thing that they make together, it's something they can kind of have as a bond throughout their 4 years. They can, oh, with Conaway's class, we remember when we made that book. So kind of as a way to socialize them as well. I also thought that by making something with a purpose of entertaining or moving their classmates, it really gives them control over their learning. Instead of just making something to show me that they learned their English, they're doing something with a purpose of, for example, making their classmates laugh at a certain point. But there's a lot of concerns when we have a project. I've got some of my own ideas, but how about writing some of your concerns when you do a project? Type those into the chat. And Andre, I can't, oh, there, I can see the chat now. Now, Todd, you said damaged input. What do you mean by that?
It's just a term that, like, when I once learned Thai through this natural approach where they would just talk to you in Thai and they would say, don't talk. They didn't want you to speak Thai, just you would speak English back to the teacher. And the whole point was that they didn't want you to hear language that wasn't perfect or not correct. So really that one, I'm not saying that that would be a problem, but I think that is maybe one concern, is that the students would have faulty language as the source of input.
Okay. It looks like Glenn and Joseph both have a kind of similar concern of some people coasting and some people doing all the work. And yeah, students who won't really give criticism. So I had a lot of the same concerns, but some of mine, let me go back, get the chat out of the way. One of mine is, at first, I was worried about how much time we would use versus how much writing or how much languaging would be done. That was my primary concern. And like you guys, the concern of the lazy member or the one who's going to take away everybody's chance to learn by saying, oh, I'll do it for you. And I think my biggest was that L2 is, I mean L1 for this, that's a typo. Most of the project time when they're trying to make something in English, they're usually speaking in Japanese. So that was a concern I had. And some things that worked for me is to break this big project into a lot of smaller tasks. Because that kind of using lots of time with little production, a lot of it is because the students don't know how to make a book. They don't know what steps they have to do. And they're spinning their wheels trying to plan a project. So kind of taking on that project management role for them. And to deal with these members that are coasting, a lot of times when we do a project, the grading is focused on the final project, or the final product, I should say. But instead, moving that grading onto the process, having these interim deliverables for the students to give that everybody produces, can put pressure on the students to all consistently produce. Now, that being said, of course, there are some students that will never do anything under any circumstances, but that we can't really work on. And thinking about using the L1 in the class to create a project, what is it so undesirable? Because if they're using their language to think deeply about their L2, it's not necessarily a crutch. I think it's more of a scaffolding. But at the same time, having that nudge to use their L2 by, say, having a weekly thing that they have to produce, like progress reports. So each week, what did you do for your project, and have that be in English was something that helped. Now, specifically for writing books, some concerns I had is a lot of my students, the idea of writing a book is just overwhelming. If I were to say that, my students would say, ha? Eh? Muri, muri, muri. That's impossible. Because the book has an image of being really long, really daunting. And they also, a book is really linear. So how in one semester, about 10 weeks, could we get a group of 5 students to write a book if somebody's got to write the beginning and somebody has to write the end? So the way I got around the kind of linear nature of the book is to copy the style of 2 different books that my students often read for their extensive reading. One being Atama-e style books, where after a few pages, you make a choice and continue on in the story. So in an Atama-e style book, it follows this kind of path, this kind of map. For our students, we did about half of this. We did 2 pages to set up the story, then a choice. Then a little bit, 1 more page to develop the story, then 1 more choice. So they did about 8 or 9 pages. And Halico's Pocket Readers 10 Ways books, 10 ways to be healthy, 10 ways to stay safe on the internet. This satisfies the students who are more into nonfiction. But because it's 10 ways, it's easy to kind of farm out tasks to different members, so everyone can progress at the same time. So my students wrote these 2 types of books. So an example of a Atama-e book that my students in an engineering class created. So they would do stuff like copy pictures or sometimes draw their own pictures and paste them into a template that I bound for them, kind of like this. So earlier I said I broke the project into a lot of different steps to help the students focus and have kind of a concrete plan. I gave this plan and schedule to the students at the beginning of the project in their orientation. At the beginning, their first task was to create their groups. There's a lot of ways you can choose groups: by student number, the student's own personal choice, putting students with similar reading amounts or similar grades together. Well, I decided to have the students match with somebody who has a similar vision for their book. So I had them answer a questionnaire in English about what type of book they were interested in making. Say a Atama-e style, a 10 Ways style, and then writing some short responses on what they think might be a cool book to make. So this was part of their L2 use in the classroom. After that, I kind of followed a Pollination style 4-3-2 fluency speaking activity where they interviewed each other about their questionnaire results. So what type of book are you interested in? Also, what's your schedule like? When are you free? When are you not free? When are you doing part-time jobs? Because that's another reason students can't work together well. They don't have schedules that match. So after they talked to about 10 or 15 of their class members, I said, fine, now you need to make your groups. You can use Japanese. Start recruiting your members. And when you get your team, report to me and let me know who's in it. Their assignment for the next week was for each member to create a storyboard for their book. So kind of a proposal that they made to their group. And during the class, they would share as small presentations to their class members, or their group members, I should say, making one final presentation or final proposal for me. Once their proposal had been approved, they would make their rough drafts. So the rough drafts would be in English, but when they came back to class, to help them focus on content, I let them do a peer review, content peer review in Japanese. So I think it would be a lot more funny if you added this type of thing. Those kind of content or meaning-based things, I thought the students could get a lot deeper if they were talking about what was written using their own language. After they added a lot of content based on their peer review, they still needed to do some editing. We didn't have a lot of time for this, but we did one pass through using just simple editing codes, like wrong word, wrong tense, and using a few simple narrative frames like, I think this is a wrong word, what do you think? And checking amongst themselves. And then once they had that edited, they would transfer it to the template that was already made. So their template just had these spaces on each page. And they could put things within that as they saw fit. So basically every book was the same size, but they could use a full space for text, or they could use it for photographs, or they could split it up however they decided to do their layouts. And then for the end of the project, we just got together as groups with the books set around the perimeter of the classroom. And almost like poster presentations, they had about 10 minutes to read a book together. So they're all kind of hunched over one book. And this way, when one person didn't understand, they shared with their classmates. So what does that mean? So they're kind of working together to understand the book. And at the same time, they know that other people are reading their books. They think, oh, that funny part that I put in my book, the part about the broccoli. I wonder, are they at that page yet? And they would look across the room at the people reading their book to get reactions. Now, after they read the book, I had them work together at kind of a convergent task where they would score each book using a grading rubric. So rather than them just scoring on their own, having to decide together what score. And I think Christina mentioned that it's difficult for the students to be critical or objective for these types of projects. I follow something that I got from my speaking examiner training, in that when I get training, I have to be within +1 point of a standard. So I tell my students, for your scores to count, so 10% of their scores applying the rubric correctly. So they have to be plus or minus, So plus or minus 20% of my score. It's really easy for them to be that close to mine, but it's a little bit of a push for them to think, what would this project really score as? And to finish up, I just wanted to briefly mention how I did this project this semester because we're in coronavirus mode. So we couldn't get together to do this kind of crafty stuff. So instead, I had them use the books that they had on X Reading, our online reading library, and make easier versions of the easy books they were reading. Kind of like what you see here. So easy version of Aladdin or a very easy version. They had to choose books of 3,000 words or more and rewrite them as books that were 800 to 1,000 words. Some other changes I made, that group making process I cut. They didn't know enough about each other to really make wise decisions on group making. They didn't have the opportunities to get together. So I just randomly put them into groups by ID number. Now that using L1 for their decision making is something that I had a lot of trouble keeping track of in the classroom. But this time, because we were online, it was much easier to get L2 usage for this decision making process. So when they were choosing which book and choosing which parts to write, they were using English in the chat of their LMS, of their learning management system. Later, when they wrote the rough drafts, they put them into the learning management system again. And like a discussion forum, each of their group members would comment and add some advice. And their final result was in a wiki, a document that everybody could edit at the same time. So I did this because I didn't want them to use too many tools. I wanted them to use their learning management system as much as possible. The reading of books, I wasn't able to replicate that kind of book fair, book festival feeling online as well. Instead, I just moved their writing to some questionnaires and sent out questionnaires so that each student read their book plus 3 other books. Because honestly, I think reading 9 1,000-word books in 1 week is pretty onerous for students that are already in final exam mode. So here's some examples of the preparation that they did. So them kind of suggesting books that would be good for this project. Later on, after one of the students has written about his part of the book, some advice on what they could do to make it a little bit better. And in the end, it came out a little bit like this. So if you're interested in the Cengage Page Turner's book, Come Home, but you didn't have 30 minutes to read it, you could probably read this version in 10. So thanks, everyone. So do we have any questions, Andre?
Yeah, we have a couple. So Joseph Polshak, he asked, how do you balance participation?
So the participation, so Joseph, what I did is each week, each deliverable, Andre, can you mute all except for me?
I don't think I can actually. Everyone, can you mute yourselves, please?
Okay. Oh.
Machiko, could you mute yourself, please?
Thank you. All right. Each week, students had their own deliverable that was not submitted as a group. Like their proposal to their group was individually done. That's part of their participation. Their proposal to me as well was individually written. So because they had individual assignments for this project each week, those students that were not doing anything were losing out, especially because that participation, that preparation was 50% of their project. So the final book was only 50%. So any other ones, Sanjay?
Yeah, okay. Glenn, he asked, how well did they interview in the L2?
Very, very simply. So basically they were reading their questionnaires back to each other. So what type of book do you want to make? Atama E style or 10 Ways style? So my students were really low-level students. So engineers, science students, kids that really avoided English in high school. And they were just taking it as a required class in university. But because they had the questionnaire in front of them, it gave them something that they could use. They didn't have to repeat that, but if they didn't know what to say, they could repeat it. So I found that for the interviews, they used a lot of English. Simple English, but a lot.
Okay, and we have another question from Hudson. He said peer editing can be difficult. Do you make this requirements, and how did you get students to do this?
The peer editing or the peer review, the content-based kind of peer review, I would just kind of, in the classroom, kind of go from class to or group to group and kind of nudge them. Hey, how about looking at this part? But when we were online, I was a little bit more explicit. So kind of, please find 2 things that you think your classmate did well. Please find at least 1 thing that you would like your classmate to write more about. And if you think something's not necessary, or if you think a word is too difficult, please add that. So they had almost a little bit of a script they could use for the online version. That seemed to go much better. So thanks. If anyone's more interested in talking more or looking at some books together, I'm going to head to the lobby, okay? So thank you, everybody.
Okay, guys. So thank you, Pat. So yeah, so everyone, if you could just unmute yourselves and maybe give him one more round of applause, please.
Yay!
There you go.
Yay!
Hey, thanks a
Thanks,
lot,
Pat.
Pat.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.